In this video, the car described by Citroën itself as reassuringly German, but unmistakably Citroën. It's the X7 second generation of Citroën C5, and this is the top of the range exclusive model, so it's the last Citroën to have hydro-pneumatic suspension. So we should be expecting fine luxury and huge refinement, but does it actually deliver? So the second generation C5 does not owe very much at all to the first generation, and in fact the lower specification C5s did without the hydro-pneumatic suspension. They just had good old coil springs. Whatever next? Some of the engines were carried over, but this has the later 2-litre 16-valve HDI engine producing 163 brake horsepower, so quite the increase over the original 110. Engines range from a 1.6 petrol, later on initially a 1.8, up to a V6 petrol, and turbo diesels range from 2-litre HDI to 2.2, and finally the same V6 twin turbo diesel that you could get in the C6. In fact, the C6 shares a great deal, and both these cars also owe a lot to the Peugeot 407, which you can see in the design of the suspension uprights and everything. It's all very, very similar. But for me, I think this is a very impressive car. I'm not sure it screams Citroën necessarily, but a hugely impressive design. We've got some hints, just like the C6. We've got a curved rear window on the saloon. This is not a hatchback. It is there is a traditional boot lid, which even eats into your load space because the hinges appear to go into this area here. So it hasn't got a clever folding technique to maximize load area, but it is nonetheless a decent sized boot. Belongs to our friend Philip, and he's on his travels, hence the boot is quite full. There was also a very capacious estate, and you could optionally have tow bars and everything as well. But yeah, I think a really nice piece of design. It like I say, it doesn't scream Citroën, but it is a very stylish design, I think, and not a line out of place, which is a stark contrast to the Mark I C5s. I think they were always quite gawky. Better at estate form, but always a bit dumpy in the styling. This, I think, has a real bit of class to it. And of course, the real big thing is what's going on inside. But just before we do, let's have a look at the piece of plastic that pretends to be an engine. Oh look, it's a huge piece of plastic. I was expecting struts, but there are none. You have to manually use the stick. I'm not even going to bother. But yes, this is the HDI 16 engine, 163 brake horsepower. Probably the pick of the engines, to be honest. A decent amount of shove, but without the complexity of the twin turbo V6. I mean, already it looks a fairly tight engine bay. Imagine what that's like with a twin turbo V6 in it. Having seen Kitch working on his C6 on the up and down channel, I'm not sure I fancy it, so I think this is probably a very good choice. Moving inside. And the door certainly shuts with a nice Germanic thud, although there's a little bit of French plastics creeping in. It's a bit creaky around the door handle, but really nice space in here. It feels very modern. And of course, we've got the trick steering wheel, but it's just locked because I haven't got the key in. So this center hub stays in place. And look at the buttons. We've got speed limiter or cruise, radio controls over here. There are thumb wheels as well for adjustments. And as I well remember, I actually drove one of these brand new. It's very easy to accidentally set the cruise control to 120 miles an hour, at which point the vehicle does accelerate quite strongly. So yeah, you change the target. It's not like you press plus until you achieve the speed. What you're actually doing is increasing the target. So that took a bit of getting used to. But yeah, very, very nice, stylish space. We've got a sunroof as well. And it just feels a really nice place to sit. The seats are supremely comfortable. And nice center armrest. We got a bit of, an adjustable as well. And I presume this opens up as well. Yes, there we go. So you can store your refreshers or tree ball mints. And then we've got a little storage area down there for crumbs mostly, I think. Electronic parking brake, because this is the exclusive. So you get the hydro-pneumatic suspension, you get an electronic parking brake, adjustable height, and with sport mode. Then we've got automatic gearbox, which I believe is a 6-speed unit, and that's got sport mode, winter mode, and oddly no button on it, so you can just move it quite freely. Obviously it locks because I haven't got the engine running. Buttons ahoy all over the place, some have been quite cutely updated, and dual zone climate control as well, which we'll need to fire up soon because someone is starting to melt, I believe. I don't know what the glove box is like your side. It's quite a long way away, quite small. What's the little cubby? We know not what's in the little cubby. Oh, it fell off.
It's the fuse box.
It's a fuse box.
Okay, you can put that there.
Yeah, so there we go. We haven't got a huge amount of storage space in the glove box, and it's fine.
No, that's not.
There we go, all fixed. There's a little sat-nav screen as well, obviously a little outdated. Indicators. A very, very electronic sound. But as well as being very comfortable for the driver, this car should also be very comfortable for the passengers. So let's head in the back and see how it feels there. So if I squeeze my sandaled feet in, again we've got a bit of French plastic going on, but yeah, that is a comfortable space. A little tight for headroom. There are actually divots in the headliner just to give me a bit more, and the old soft close on there. We've got window blinds for when, like today, it's a bit hot, just to keep some of the worst of it off you, the sun's rays. Acoustic glass, I believe, as well, so it should be very refined going down the road. We've got an armrest, which has drinks holders attached there, a little space here as well, so that's good. Always good to have cup holders. We've got a ski hatch by the look of it as well, so we can go through into the boot. So if one is carrying one's skis, what we've got down here, a cigarette lighter and a little ashtray. We've got storage for documents as well. Okay, so we've got a traditional key start, and there's no getting away from the fact it's a diesel engine. We've got the aircon going, I'm afraid, because it's quite hot, but it sounds smooth enough and distant enough. We should do a windscreen wiper check before we go. A nice fine mist displayed, and a good wiping pattern. There is a triangle behind this mirror, but it's obscured entirely by the mirror and the rain sensor down here, so it doesn't affect the view at all. It means a good wiping performance for both sides of the car, so that is a considerable improvement over the C5 Mark 1. Just to talk about C5 terminology, some people call the Mark 1 facelift the Mark 2, and therefore this is a Mark 3, but in Citroën circles the most common reference for this car is the X7. The X7 was actually a concept released in 2007 that sort of foreshadowed, it preempted the eventual C5, which came the year after. So launched in 2008, UK sales ended in 2016 because they sold 300 of them in 2015, but European production continued till 2017, but by that stage Chinese production had started, and that continued until 2021, although the end of the European production in 2017 was also the end of the hydro-pneumatic suspension, so it wasn't even an option anymore. So handbrake automatically released. You can't just wang the wheel around. You really do have to keep your hands on the rim because the middle bit just doesn't go around. So ease the long nose out. We're already in second apparently. Into fourth, and it actually gives me a display so I can tell what gear I'm in. And I shouldn't have to care because it's an automatic, but the truth is I do. But certainly a very peaceful car, and even at the 20 mile an hour we're allowed to do at the moment, you still got a bit of the float of that hydro-pneumatic suspension, the Hydractive 3. So if you start pushing on, it does firm up a bit. It hasn't got full body control like an Activa. The Xantia Activa actually cancelled out body roll, but it does firm it up and it stops things getting untoward with the sport button available if you want to take things a step further. But we found when we drove the C6 that belongs to Kitsch, but it was a bit too floaty, and this has got a little bit of that, but we're going to take down some roads that will definitely test it.
Sorry, a bird flew directly at the windscreen.
Oh, okay, we just avoided it. Excellent bird avoidance skills. Good job we're only doing 20, or we would definitely have hit it. So steering certainly very light at these slower speeds. We'll see if it firms up a bit once we get underway. Once we're allowed to get underway. Yeah, it's definitely very smooth. But here comes the national speed limit sign, so we'll give it a bit of a boot. And that's 60 miles an hour up very smoothly. And now it realises we're not accelerating anymore, it's dropped into 6th gear. Yeah, there's a little bit of wind noise. It's actually got aftermarket wind deflectors fitted, and I don't know if they're responsible for a little bit more wind noise than normal, but you can't describe it as noisy, can you? And it is quite a gusty day as well, so that makes a difference. It definitely isn't floating like the C6 was. The C6 felt quite fake. To be honest, this is a bit unremarkable in the fact it doesn't feel like a hydro-Citroen, I don't think. Just every now and then there's just a bit of a float, but the biggest problem with the X7 was the earlier one I drove, back when they were current. It was supremely comfortable on coil springs, so even the conventional suspension rides really well. Of course, what you don't get with a conventional suspension, you don't get the self-leveling, and if you've got a big estate that you're piling stuff into the back of, that self-leveling is very, very useful. So it's a completely different hydraulic system on all C5s, uses LDS fluid instead of the good old LHM, and the braking and steering are entirely separate. Right, we're going to go down the road now, which when we had the electric Fiat 500 was painfully bad. It was absolutely horrific, so I think there is no better test for suspension than the road down which we are about to embark. So here we go. Oh, I like this. Look at the speed it gathers, and it's keeping the revs down to about 2,000 revs. But oh yeah, this is a good test, but very comfortable, I have to say. This road undulates all over the place. It's almost like a Fenland road. Where does all this lot come from? Middle of nowhere, and suddenly there's traffic a go-go. Yeah, I like the gearbox uses the torque, of which there is plenty. That is very relaxing. It doesn't make nice noises like the V6 petrol and diesel do. They both sound very nice. But at what cost? I mean, this car will easily do 50 to the gallon on a run in a way I don't think the V6s will. I was going to turn around. We're going to go back down the road. I'm going to put it in sport mode and see if it feels any different. Oh yeah, it definitely feels firmer. I would say that feels much more like a conventional car. But you have to say that is still pretty composed. Take it out of sport mode, and yeah, then that really does smooth out very nicely indeed. Obviously a very safe car as well, because Renault were becoming the masters of car safety at the time, which forced the other French manufacturers to really jump on the same bandwagon. Oh yeah, this is this road in Betty, my Ford Fairmont, is not ever so pleasant. A bit better now she actually has rear shock absorbers, but this just feels very, very accomplished. But like I say, oh, the biggest problem with these cars is that the normal suspension version is so accomplished as well. Oh, a bit of a bang there because we're still in sport mode, just hit quite the drain cover. But yeah, very enjoyable form of motoring. This gearbox is lovely and smooth. It's just, it is a bit, I think it probably neutral drops when you're at a standstill. There is sometimes a bit of a jolt with that. There's some transmissions around this time used to do. And infuriatingly, if you take your foot off the brake and put the handbrake on, they tend to go back into drive. So you have to sit there with your brake lights on. Not sure I like that. Yeah, I have to say, even in non-sport mode, it feels very accomplished. Perhaps a bit of body roll going on, but like I say, the hydroactive does automatically firm it up if you're pushing on a bit. So, yeah, this reminds me both of my C5 Mark 1 we had and my XM. It's the ability for such a big car, and it is a big old lump, to kind of shrink around you on these sorts of Welsh roads. Perfect test of suspension and steering, body control, and it just feels very accomplished. It's not like it's begging me to thrash it. It's not a Ford Puma. It isn't that live and exciting, but it's accomplished enough for you to just, you know, go into bends having full confidence it's going to go around it without making you or your passengers feel uncomfortable. I assume my passenger isn't uncomfortable.
I'm good.
And you may be interested to know this car is currently for sale. So if you'd be interested in buying this car, thankfully we can't afford it, then do drop me an email, ian@hubnut.org, and I can pass your inquiries on to Philip. Car is based down in West Sussex more normally. This is what the C6 never had. The C6 never had this fixed hub, and it really should have. It just makes it feel that much more Citroën. It's not
kitsch.
Oh no, it's not a new thing. I mean, cars even in the 1930s and 1920s would have fixed hub that often meant the trafficators, the controls for it on there. So it's not a new thing, but yeah, Citroën definitely picked up this ball, ran with it for the C5 and the C4, but ultimately it didn't really catch on. There's always this danger, you feel like you might trap your thumbs, but actually it's quite well designed to avoid that. So there we go, that was the last hydro-pneumatic Citroën ever built. They don't sink normally, I've just made it sink because why wouldn't you? It's one of the coolest features ever fitted to a car. And it's so sad that this was the end of what had been a Citroën mainstay since 1954, when they first fitted it to the back of the Traction Avant. It offered so much, but ultimately it was the sheer cost of hydro-pneumatic meant it came to an end. But what a fine vehicle to end it on. Very, very comfortable, a lovely car to drive, and definitely got some Citroën magic about it. So thank you very much to Philip for letting us drive this beautiful car while he has a little touring holiday of Wales, and we look forward to seeing you in a future video. Farewell. You can see the sandals now, they can get really upset.